welcome all of you to the Sunday morning class. And this class is offered by IMCW and the Center for Mindful Living. All are welcome. If you're new and you'd like to say hello in the chat, please feel free to. We appreciate and welcome anyone here for the first time. And of course, welcome and lovingly receive all of you that are here in the Sangha on a regular basis, and appreciate the community of that we have co-created over all these years. So thank you. So just so you know what we'll be doing this morning, we'll have a brief arriving meditation, not too long, maybe 10-15 minutes. Then I'll be giving a Dharma talk, and then we'll stretch a little bit, and then be doing a practice, another meditation, and that will be the more primary meditation for today. And then we'll finish up with some community sharing and dialogue. So when you're ready, I just invite you to please begin to settle into your posture. And maybe softening the front of the body and taking a couple of full conscious breaths. As you breathe in, allow the stomach to expand and then the upper chest in a gentle way. You don't have to take a huge, big, forceful breath. And then allow the exhale to be nice and long, kind of a sense of letting go of any distress or tension. Try a couple of those on your own now. If you like to make a sound with the out breath, that also feels good. And when you're ready, just letting the breath be natural once again. And with a gentle, receptive awareness, can you begin to get a sense of the whole body sitting here? And for now, just be curious. How does my physical body feel? What's being known and felt? Different kinds of sensations. Maybe you feel the breath. Perhaps you notice a feeling of pressure or weight, where the body's making contact with the chair, the floor. And you might, with a kind awareness, notice what feels pleasant, unpleasant, or maybe neutral. And just bringing a gentle, kind attention to whatever is being felt. It's just the way it is right now. And you might bring your attention now and rest it softly in the area of the heart center, right there around the heart or the center of the chest. And maybe you can sense the quality of the heart, the emotions, the mood. Any emotions that might be present, and just receiving them with a kind, open heart, letting them be for now. And you might begin to notice, open to the state of the mind. Just being curious, is the mind present or distracted? Is it here or somewhere else? Is the mind open or a little bit judgy? Does the mind heart feel content or a little restless? And this is mindfulness, just noticing, allowing, and being present with whatever is appearing, arising in the body, the mind and heart. And just seeing how things are with us right now. And you might softly and gently begin to notice and feel the breath moving. For now, just noticing the in-breath, the out-breath. And as you're attending to the breath, perhaps you start to notice where you feel it the most clearly. And you might begin to rest awareness right there, just allowing awareness to accompany the breath. The flow of the breath. Perhaps having a sense or maybe an aspiration for the breath to just gradually soothe and calm the body, to bring the mind and body together right here. These last couple of minutes, you might wish to just stay present with breathing, mindfulness of breathing, or you might like to just open awareness to include more and more of your experience. And just resting right here, receiving life as it is from moment to moment. And as we bring this arriving meditation to a close, just invite you once again to feel your feet, your hands, the weight and pressure of your body, just grounding into the present moment. And may our practice today, together in this community, be of benefit to each of us and to all beings. So I invite you to please take a stretch and move around, and maybe for the next 20, 25 minutes, just letting yourself be comfortable. So the name of the talk this morning is The Kindness and True Love. And just this past month in September, some of you were there. And so some of this is you're going to have heard before, but it's also evolved a little. But in September, I co-led a day-long retreat with another teacher, Jennifer Stanley, and it was about love. And it was called Loving Well, Unveiling the Heart. And this morning, I'd just like to stay with that same theme and offer some reflections on love. So to begin with, I'll just kind of revisit loving kindness, and then we'll move into some states of mind that tend to veil, obscure, or cloud our capacity for loving kindness. And then later on, we'll practice a different kind of practice around loving kindness called Radiating Metta. So for those of you who might not know this, it'll be a good review, maybe a deepening. In Buddhist teachings, love is often described as metta. That's a Pali word, and the translation keeps refining, but it's a basic sense of kindness and friendliness. I noticed that many monastics, they seem to like the word benevolent. And I understand that because it kind of points to a disposition of the heart and the mind that is harmless. It's not caught in greed, hatred, and delusion. And so it has this quality of friendliness. And for this reason, sometimes metta is described as a verb, to befriend, our capacity to befriend. And this befriending is not limited to ourselves. It extends to all beings. And it's often said that metta is extended without reservation or condition. And it's this without reservation or condition that gives loving kindness or metta its boundless quality. It's often said to be boundless. I saw a commentary on the Metta Sutta that described metta as the practice of universal love. And while metta has this quality of universal or transcendent. It's also the very root of the ethical and wise behavior that the Eightfold Path invites us to follow in order to free and liberate our hearts. So it's both, right? It's both transcendent and relative, in the sense that it can be the ground of our ethical speech, our kind speech, our behavior, our intention not to do harm. And it's also aspirational. It invites us to bring a quality of friendship to all of our relationships and to our inner experience. There's a scholar, a teacher, his name is Bhikkhu Anayo, and he said the following, and he did say that this was his opinion, so I think that's important for us to clarify. He wrote that the genuine opening of the heart to kindness and compassion is a better measure of our progress on the awakening path than having extraordinary experiences. The genuine opening of the heart to kindness and compassion is a better measure of our progress on the awakening path than having extraordinary experiences. And he suggests that when we begin any meditation or end any meditation, that just as we did this morning, that we dedicate it, that we hold whatever practice we do in the spirit of, may this be beneficial for myself and others. All of us, right? So it occurred to me that, and I would encourage you to do this in just a gentle way, not something that your inner critic might pile on about, but just to pause right now and ask yourself, as I practice this path, and as I've been on this path, would I say that I've become kinder? Am I kinder? My thoughts, my speech, my behavior? Is there a more willingness, more attention given to being kind? You might just notice that and sit with that, as rather than being, sometimes we have gotten caught, many of us have gotten caught in looking for the extraordinary expenses when perhaps our progress on the path is something much simpler, like, are we kinder? One of the key things that I've come to understand about metta practice is that if we think it's a feeling, we're going to get hung up. And I'd like to suggest that metta practice is not a feeling, it's an intention. It's an aspiration. And sometimes, and I know I kind of felt this way, I felt like it was kind of a side practice, and many people do. And sometimes people turn away from metta because they think they're supposed to be feeling something, that they're supposed to be feeling loving and kind and like really available, and even when they don't. I'd like to suggest to you that, metta, opening our hearts, isn't going to come through forcing a mood or pretending it's about, that to be kind. It's going to come through a deep longing, a desire, and a remembering, and a cultivating our capacity to meet life in this open-hearted way. And for those of you who know about and follow the Eightfold Path, the practice of metta would be seen both as wise intention and wise effort. And just like mindfulness, as we practice metta, it can become stronger and more continuous. It gets more established in our mind. And just a quick story, some of you on the retreat that were at the retreat might have experienced this, but so the whole day when we were practicing and cultivating loving kindness, all the meditations were about loving kindness, the talks were about loving kindness, walking incorporated loving kindness. We did a couple of metta practices. So, and that started around 10 a.m. And then like around towards the closing, we went into this room together. It was a large room. And we did this practice by Joanna Macy called the milling practice. And what you do is everybody just sort of walks around the room. And towards the end, you're invited, and it was optional, you didn't have to do it, but to stop and just look someone in the eyes and in your heart and mind wish them to be happy, well. And what I noticed, and many people shared and felt too, was there was this really genuine wish for people to be happy, to be unburdened, to be okay. It wasn't fabricated, it wasn't forced, but it was really I don't know why it happened the way it did ultimately, but I would say that we were cultivating it. And I've heard monastics say that metta can become like this energy field. So I don't want it to sound too woo-woo there, but clearly we were experiencing directly that as we cultivated it, it just started to flow out. It was just there. And it was heartfelt. I saw a brief little talk by Ajahn Amaro and he called it the true meaning of metta. And he mentioned something that it caught my attention, but he basically said that we can love without liking. And I thought, gosh, that's really, really true. I mean, think about mothers and fathers. I mean, we don't always like our kids, right? We don't always like how they're behaving or what they're doing, or think of how many phone calls you've had with some salesperson on the telephone, and you feel really annoyed and irritated and maybe unfairly treated, but yet you're not disrespectful. You're not rude. You stay calm. Not always, and granted, but there's plenty of evidence if we look in our lives that we can still maintain that kind friendship, that respect for others. I think respect has something to do with metta too. That where we just don't let ourselves go into hatred and ill will. And if we are, we're working with it internally so that we don't put it out there and harm them in some way. And we don't add to the world's hatred and aversion and ill will. But back to Ajahn Amaro, what he was really saying is that metta is the ability to be kind even towards what is unpleasant or difficult. It can be no matter what. Metta can be kind, respectful, just sort of basically respectful towards what's unpleasant or difficult. And this isn't, again, as you can see, it's not naiveness, it's not passivity, it's not people pleasing. It's rather just this value, if you will, or intention or aspiration to not make others or yourself an enemy. And the Metta Sutta talks about that, to not despise another. And in that, we start to maybe even more deeply realize that ourselves, just like all other human beings, are shaped by life in so many different ways, and shaped by our ancestry, by all kinds of causes and conditions. So let that sink in. Maybe you want to take a nice full breath there, sort of transition. And so I want to mention there are many mind states, right, that could cloud or veil or cover up our human capacity for loving kindness. You think of the 5 hindrances, many of you are aware of those, and attachment, greed, restlessness, worry. But today I'm going to focus on 3 of them. The first is conceit, aversion, and the last is perfectionism. And I'll just kind of go through those one by one. So conceit kind of starts with the basic sense of I am. And in the Buddhist tradition, conceit has a lot to do with what's called comparing mind. And it's mentioned that there are basically 3 types of conceit, and each have to do with I am something, right? And in this case, it's I am superior, I'm better than. And you can see how this is the seed for contempt, self-righteousness, inequality, right? I'm better than you. The second kind of conceit is called inferiority. I'm worse than you, I'm not as good as you. And that's the birthplace of so many things like shame, not feeling good enough, the trance of unworthiness, all of those things, all those kinds of mind states, and all that kind of suffering it's embedded in this I am inferior, I am worse than others. The final one is I'm the same, we're equal. And that takes, to me, this part of conceit takes some discernment, right? Because yes, we are all human beings having a human experience. I think we'd all be on the same page with that. But if we observe and we notice and we've lived some life, we know that that all human beings do not have the same histories, the same privileges, the same resources, or the same conditions. And when we just kind of go into, oh, we're all the same, it's just not wise. It's not discerning. It's not really seeing how things are. But all 3 of them have this comparing quality to them, this tendency to compare. And you might think of conceit as the voice of the egoic mind, the I that divides the world into me in here and you out there. It's also has this mindset of, or what you might call a hierarchical worldview, where people are ranked and measured instead of a relational worldview or a relational paradigm where everyone and everything is interconnected, belongs, and is perhaps on a unique journey. So in practice, the invitation is to notice when you're in comparing mind. And sometimes it could be running in your programming and your conditioning, and be so much of a habit or a mind habit that You don't always recognize it. But I think that with just a little mindfulness, you can start to pick up on it. And sometimes maybe you pick up on it in a big way, right? Because you could either have that sort of puffed up feeling of I'm superior, or you could have that kind of inflated feeling of I'm not enough. And then if you find yourself going, oh, we're all the same, we're all that, that may be the most subtle. That might actually not carry as much dukkha, but in some ways, relationally, it might be, it could start to become a form of invalidating other people and their experience. And so when you notice comparing mind, as we do in so many mindfulness practices and awareness practices, notice how it feels. Feel the ouch of dukkha. Notice that it's not a peaceful state. It's not a state of contentment. And then invite yourself to open back up, to kind of know in your heart of hearts that it's not worth it, that you'd rather be free than to be caught up in conceit mind. I'll just tell a personal story. I like to, when I can, I try to bring myself into it, not so much to be like, it's all about me, but more like just humanizing it, and also it can feel like it's up at some sort of theoretical level when these are really, all these teachings and practices hopefully inform our lives in present moment experiences. And I mentioned this again at the retreat, so sorry for those of you who have heard it, but someone made a choice. It was a semi-professional situation, and they sent me an email, and they didn't intend to do it, but it hurt my feelings. And I didn't pause. I didn't catch the pause. I just kind of reacted and sent back a quick email. You'd think that's sort of like mindfulness, beginner's mindfulness, but it happened, and I said something, and later on, the worst part of it was just kind of some regret that I felt afterwards, because I had recognized that I had just kind of caught up in, a combination of things. Conceit. I was feeling less than, right? I was feeling inferior. I was feeling inadequate in some way and undervalued. And then, parts of me that were hurt by that went into kind of protective mode and defensive mode. And before you know it, I was sending an email. So when those things happen, it's really an opportunity for us to look deeper. Like, okay, what was really going on there? And a good place to look is conceit. Was conceit, some form of conceit, fueling this? Some kind of I am better, I am worse, I'm the same. So the second mind state that can cover or veil, sometimes love is seen as something that's veiled, that it's there, but it's veiled. And that is the most common one, which is hatred, aversion, and ill will. So, at its mildest, ill will can be just not liking something, just being somewhat annoyed. At its strongest, it can be full-blown hatred and vengeance. And see for yourself, but aversion to me it's a rejection. It's a rejection of the way life is in any given moment, right? It's, I don't like this, I don't want this. It's kind of an inner no. It's a pushing away. It's a rejection. the teacher, Christina Feldman, this is what she had to say about metta. Metta, boundless friendliness, is directed towards uprooting the deeply embedded pattern of ill will or aversion. And aversion has many faces: irritation, impatience, jealousy, blame, guilt, hatred, belittlement, disdain, and contempt. So there's a lot of flavors of emotions there, right? Embedded, that aversion, hatred, and ill will cover. I think, too, that if we have investigated ill will or aversion or hatred, that we might discover deep down that there's some sort of either hurt or fear of loss or harm that's really, really at the bottom of it. There's an old saying that sad is mad, right? That sad is mad or fear is mad. And so the aversion and the ill will and the hatred are really what we might call secondary emotions. The primary are usually like fear and hurt and sadness, vulnerability. So as you practice with aversion, the inquiry could be, what's underneath this aversion? What's underneath it? What emotions, beliefs, wounds, unmet needs might this aversion, ill will be protecting? There was a moment just this week, I was walking down, we have kind of a pathway that we walk sometimes, my husband and I, and we're just having our morning chat, run, whatever. And wow, before I knew it, I was just kind of like, just my speech was just a little rough, right? And probably going on about something in the world, but he didn't say anything, but I caught myself, right? Or the mind caught itself. That's maybe a better way of saying it. There was a recognition that, oh my gosh, there it is. Just kind of ill will and aversion and annoyance and impatience and they and them and othering just kind of flowing right out. And just in that simple recognition. And this may not always be true, but as we practice more and more and we catch it, that's sometimes all we need. It's like, oh, okay. And then we let it pass. We don't fuel it. We don't feed it. We don't give it even more. We realize that that's not a skillful use of our attentional energies. It might feel seductive, like it's really going to make us feel better. But in my experience, that you have to see for yourself, that's not true. That's not really true. So every instance, especially when you're in relationships or wherever you are, you can start to notice this aversive, rejecting sort of mindset. And again, Christina Feldman says it better than I could, and she said, each time we recommit the heart to kindness, we are no longer consenting to feed the habit of ill will and aversion. I love that. It's a recommitment. Every time we do it, it's like, okay, recommit. Recommit to loving kindness. Recommit to non-judgment. Because love is non-judgmental. Isn't it? Deep down. So we're not building the habit. We're not staying with the habit. Again, you might just pause here, take a breath. I want to mention one last quality that can veil the heart. And thank you for your attention. So a final barrier to perfectionism, a final barrier to the heart opening is perfectionism. And perfectionism, often masquerades as a strength, or I have high standards. Again, I have high standards. I have better standards than you, right? We got that little bit of conceit in there. And perfectionism has this way of promising that if I just get it right, I'm going to finally feel secure and loved. I'm going to feel successful. I'm going to get something, whatever that is. But underneath, perfectionism is really a very activating mindset. It really puts us into the stress response. And all of us, then the body gets really tight, the central nervous system gets clicked on, and we start to feel stressed. And then sometimes the critical mind can come in, and we become, kind of hyper vigilant for making mistakes or being judged. Interestingly, as we all know, the Buddhist path talks about how dukkha, or suffering, is fueled by craving and aversion. That when it's really clung to both of those, that grasping generates a lot of dukkha, a lot of suffering. And you might find it helpful to consider that when you're driven by perfectionism, you're actually in a state of both. You're craving for exactness, and you're being averse to the imperfect. You're craving for, so you can see it's both, craving for exactness and averse to the imperfect. So when we get attached to outcomes, we can lose loving kindness. We can lose sight of it. We can close the veil on it, right? We can just kind of pull the veil over it once again. And we get caught in striving and stress. So just to bring a little psychology in this, and I say this with a great deal of gentleness, but maybe and ultimately to be helpful, if you've ever suffered or do suffer from a little bit of social anxiety, the tendency is to kind of view relating as a performance, and one that you have to execute perfectly. And that's, wow, that's heavy. Can you feel that? Right? Like if every conversation or every time you speak or every time you're the center of attention, but you don't do it on purpose, but the conditioning comes up and says, oh God, deep down in the background, you got to be perfect. You got to get this just right? And it's viewed like a performance. That's why they often call social anxiety a performance anxiety, right? It's weighted down by this perfection, right? And going back, it also has this element of conceit in it, doesn't it, right? That I'm inferior in some way. So again, if anybody's suffering with that, all gentleness to you. And maybe that's another perspective where you might just remind yourself that it's not a performance. It doesn't have to be done perfectly. And that loving kindness is more dependable and more, will give you a deeper confidence. So I'll bring it to a close now, and just invite you in your, not only today, but in your daily life and in your relationships, to just be mindful and be curious about the presence and the absence of loving kindness, to not see it as a kind of an off the side practice, right? That it's not as important as mindfulness or concentration, because what I'm studying and coming to see and realize is that no, it's always been there. It's always been there as an essential practice. How would we ever talk about loving awareness if there wasn't any love in it, right? Kind awareness, right? And this is the importance of metta, cultivating loving kindness. And I'll wrap up with this quote. It's a little hard hitting, but I have to say that I thought that it had a wisdom to it, and I don't think it's intended to be critical. I think it's intended to be discerning and to be clear. I think it carries a lot of clarity. And it's a brief statement, and it was written by a Buddhist scholar named Andrew Alinsky. And I'm just gonna, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. And he said, metta practice is not only about others, it's about you. You do not love others because they deserve it. The practice is for cleansing your own mind stream, your own mind-heart stream. Hatred is inherently toxic. Even small doses, annoyance, impatience, disapproval, reinforce a toxic quality of mind. Loving kindness is the antidote to hatred. It allows you to access the wisest, loving parts of yourself without letting anyone or anything block that. I love that. And I know that's so direct, but yes, it's about being kind and friendly, but it's about cleansing, liberating our own mind stream of the toxic elements of hatred, aversion, and ill will, because they are toxic. The teachings tell us they're toxic. And to be so committed to that we don't allow anyone's behavior to let, or any situation to let anyone or anything block our capacity for loving kindness, and to meet it with loving kindness. You use the breath and light, like a globe or a radiant light in your heart area. And that light and the breath become your meditation objects. But you do hold in the back of your mind that the light is representing the light of loving kindness. And metta is often said to be like the sun, in that its rays shine equally on everyone, and that the sun doesn't expect reciprocity, and neither does a truly awakened heart. And I know that's a high bar, but that is metta. True metta is not really based on attachment, or it's not transactional. It's not, I love you because you do this or don't do this. So as you practice this, just imagine and feel that this light with each in-breath grows brighter, and with each out-breath it shines on others in the world. And it is a more of a concentration practice. I do want to say that, because you're you're really giving your full attention, a soft full attention to this light and to the breath and to the radiate. But don't push the radiating. Just let it happen on its own. All right, so just invite you now to settle into your posture. And as best you can, please don't get hung up on doing it right or wrong. And if you don't really, some people don't have a lot of imagery, and if you don't see a lot of light in your heart, that's okay. Just let the intention carry it. Remembering metta is an aspiration, not a feeling. So maybe noticing the felt sense of the body touching the floor in the chair. Taking a few moments to arrive here in this body, in this room, with all of us gathered. Perhaps just being willing for a moment to notice your own inner goodness, your own desire for love, kindness, freedom. And then bringing awareness down into the heart center, right there in the middle of the chest. Begin to feel the rise and falling of the breath. Right there in the heart center, the expansion and the contraction. Now imagine and feel a radiant light glowing in the heart center. Maybe sensing and feeling its warmth. Maybe just sensing a little brightness. With each in-breath, imagine and sense that the light grows stronger. So when you breathe in, the light grows stronger, more radiant. When you breathe out, the radiant light shines outward, spreads outward. Let's take a moment to get the feel for that. Breathing in, the light of metta grows brighter. Breathing out, it radiates, flows outward. And now with each in-breath, letting the light grow brighter, and with each out-breath, let the light shine and begin to fill the inside of your body with warmth and kindness. Breathing in the light of brightness, spreading out, breathing out, spreading throughout the whole body, letting it reach all parts of yourself. Just like the sun warming you from the inside out. Breathing in, the light brightens. Breathing out, radiating, spreading throughout your whole body. Warmth, kindness. Now bring to mind your loved ones and friends, whoever appears that's dear to you. With each exhale, let the radiant light extend outward to embrace them, surround them with the light of love, radiating kindness through them, to them. Breathing in, the light gets stronger, brighter. Breathing out, embracing your loved ones. Wishing that they be held and embraced in this loving, radiant light, this loving light. Maybe there's several or many people in your view receiving this radiating, loving light of metta. And breathing in, the light continues and gathers strength and brightness. And breathing out, it begins to radiate in all directions, touching as many beings as you can imagine, including those who are difficult, seen and unseen. And letting this light glow and brighten with each in-breath. Letting it flow out in all directions. Embracing, touching, infusing everyone. This kind-hearted love. And letting this light of metta shine across the entire world. Maybe upward, spreading upward, radiating upward to the skies, downward to the depths, outward, unbounded, free of hatred, free of aversion. Breathing in the light of metta, brightening, and breathing out, radiating, sending goodwill, kindness to all. You might just pause here now and let the practice go. And just notice how you're feeling. No expectation. And slowly, I just invite you to stay in this meditative space and just join me in reciting these 3 metta phrases to bring our time in meditation to a close. And for those of you who are willing, I invite you to unmute. Something very powerful about giving our voices to this. Just invite you to hold the aspiration to have the loving kindness grow in your own heart. So I'll say the phrase and then you can repeat it out loud together. May this radiant light of love shine in my heart.
May this radiant light shine in my heart.
Shine in my heart.
May it shine brightly in each of our hearts.
May it shine brightly in each of our hearts.
May it shine in the hearts of all beings.
May
May
it
it
shine
shine
in
in
the
the
hearts
hearts
of
of
all
all
beings.
beings.
Thank you.